Welcome everyone. My name is Carrie. I'm an EAP counselor, and I'm so excited to be here with you today for our webinar on self-care. And today with me is my co-facilitator, Matt Gilbert. Would you like to pop in and say hello?
I would. Hi, Carrie. Hello, everyone. WSU. It's good to be here. I'm trying to start my video, but for some reason it's not starting on my end.
Okay.
But at least you can hear my soothing voice.
Yes,
right?
definitely. Thank you so much, Matt.
You
I'm
bet.
going to turn my video off, but I just wanted to pop in and say hello so you could see that there's a human here. And so I'll pause my video and we'll just continue. So during our time together today, we're going to talk about self-care and strategies that you can use to support yourself and others during these unprecedented times. And through our time together, what we would love to do with all of you is make this really interactive. Everybody is muted, and will be for the entire session, except for Matt and myself. But we can communicate through the chat box. So Matt and I have done a few of these webinars, and we have found that using the chat box is just a wonderful way for us to create community. You're already this wonderful community bonded together by your school, your amazing school. And through the chat box, we can, Matt and I will offer some ideas and, our clinical experience as well as EAP counselors. But you also have a lot of knowledge and experience. You're living this too. So in the chat box, you can add your thoughts, your ideas. If you know of other resources, you can put those into the chat box. We'll be asking you some questions, and then you can put your answers in the chat box. So I just want to let you know that it is not rude to use the chat box while we're talking. So feel free to use it, and people have found it to be very beneficial.
Yes.
And if you're not comfortable with the chat box, that's okay. I'm going to explain how to use it in just a second here. But if you don't feel inclined to use the chat box, that's okay too. But we're really encouraging you as much as you're comfortable to use the chat box. So in case we have some folks that might be new to using Zoom, I'm just going to do a quick review of how to use the chat box. So take your mouse and hover over your screen. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see the word chat and then a bubble above it. Click on that, open it up, it'll open up for you, and you can see where it says type message here. And that's where you're going to type in your message. Right above that, you see to, and that's who the message is going to. What Matt and I would suggest, strongly suggest, is that you click the little arrow that's there where it says to, and there's a place where it says everyone. And so when it says everyone, that means that what you put in that chat box will go out and everyone will be able to see it. So that is a great way for us to share information as a community. So just encourage you to do that. If you have a message you need to send to Matt or myself, we should be listed there where that down arrow is as an option. But really encouraging you to send it out to the whole group so that we can all work together and support each other and share ideas. The other thing that I want to mention is that we have, our time together today, and there's a possibility that we might not get to all of the questions that you might have. And so just wanted to let you know that if there's a question that comes in that we're not able to get to, there might be some questions that might be out of the scope of what we're talking about today, or for Matt and I to respond, it would be much lengthier than the chat box could hold. Those types of things. Just know there's another avenue, and that is to call the EAP, and you can ask your questions there, and they will get you connected to the right person to help support you and get you the answers that you're seeking. And we're going to talk more about how you contact us towards the end of the presentation, but just want to make sure that everyone knew there's another option if we don't get to your question today. All right. So next I thought we would exercise our chat box muscle. And if you could put in the chat box what department you're in, or a shout out to, you know, representing what area of the college or whatever feels right for you, so we can just all see who's here. Oh, this is great. Look at this.
Wow, look at that.
Wonderful.
See some extensions out there. Very nice.
Yeah.
Pharmacy.
Libraries and pharmacy and graduate school, children's center.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
Marketing and communications. Wonderful. Counseling and psychological services. Way to represent, Sabrina. Nice.
Yeah.
Carson College.
Transportation and mailing services. Welcome. Oh, so great.
Oh, Tri-Cities. Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're coming from different locations, of course. Mm-hmm. Wow. And physically located maybe in different, you know, everybody's some similar areas, but also different areas that you're physically located. Great. Thank you. And if anyone wants to put in a little quick weather report, Matt and I are both on the west side of the state. And so I'm curious, I'm imagining you have sun over there. So, oh my goodness, 70s. Okay. I am envious. All right. That's awesome. Great. So it's pretty easy to use the chat box. So we'll just keep using the chat box as we go through the presentation. Great. And we have some people coming from other areas, like out of the state, like Idaho. Nice.
Wow.
Wonderful. Great.
That's wonderful.
Awesome. Yeah, that's right. Not everybody's on the east side of the state because you have different locations. That's all right. Great. Well, thank you so much. Okay, so Matt, now that we've kind of got our chat box muscle going, do you want to get us started?
I would love to. Thank you. And I did see was it San Francisco? Yes. No, South San Francisco.
Wow. Wonderful.
Oh my goodness. You're so lucky. That's such a beautiful area.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much. My name is Matt Gilbert. Thank you, chat, for being here. And collectively, all 146 roughly of you are in my front room right along with me. So let's get started. So first and foremost, we just want to put a bookend on the presentation, today's presentation, and kind of take a look at taking care of our mental health in times of these unprecedented times, which as many, if not most of us, have experienced some stress. And with that being said, just in recognizing that, you know, as human beings, we really are hardwired, aren't we, for the familiar, and we're certainly hardwired for community and connection. In fact, connection is one of our innermost intimate needs, the ability to connect with others. And so it would not be uncommon for us to experience some intensity with our thoughts and our feelings now more than ever. And so with that, we just want to touch on the idea that, you know, just know that the stress reaction, the thoughts, the feelings, they're really there to protect us. And however, they too, if we're not managing some of the more intense thoughts or feelings, or at a time where we're feeling that our capacity of managing stress is perhaps a little bit more wafer thin, and we're feeling overwhelmed and frustrated, it can, again, if we're not engaging in good self-care and managing stress, it can really wreak all sorts of havoc on us, not just from the perspective of mental health, but our physical health as well. And so, you know, this is a time when many of us are thinking about and hearing about and worried about COVID. We may feel, even at times, a sense of sadness, a sense of grief. Many of you, no doubt, work directly with students, and so you probably, I would imagine, miss them and want to be there in support of them. And so this can be a time where we feel helpless. um, about what will happen or what we can do. And so again, just allow me to reiterate that these feelings are normal given the circumstances, and also that these feelings might even connect us to previous moments or periods in our life where we've been impacted or experienced other types of stressors and even trauma. And certainly if we have other mitigating underlying medical issues, it can complicate it as well if we're not engaging, as I said, in good self-care. And we're going to get into the weeds here a little bit in this this particular webinar. So we hope that each and every one of you are able to grab a hold of something and put it in your pocket and carry it with you, not just during the COVID-19 pandemic, but in life, in moving forward. And hopefully you can share some of these ideas with others as well. So welcome everyone, one and all. And yeah, so we're going to get started, and we're going to take a look at the concept or the practical idea of what it means to stay present or staying in the moment. And Carrie's going to walk us through some pretty unique, a unique exercise. And I will see you on the other end of that. Carrie?
Great. Thanks so much, Matt.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so we do hope to share strategies with you today. And so this is a strategy around self-care. Is to stay present in the moment. And this is nothing fancy. This is being present in the moment, is really being here in this moment, listening to the sound of my voice, rather than our thoughts focused on the future and the worries about what if, and then those worries compounding so that we're no longer aware of what's happening in the present, right? We're really focused on the future. Another way it could happen is we could be thinking about the past, as Matt talked about. We can have a worry about the past. An example would be perhaps you or someone in your family was laid off during the recession. And so that brings up worries right now because you've had an experience in the past. So it's something that happened in the past and you're thinking about that, and then you're worrying about that maybe for the future. So worrying about the past or the future, when we're doing that, then we're not focused on the present. And so when we're stressed, our nervous system, it gets activated. And it prepares our body to run, to fight, or to hide from a threat. And this is a good thing. It's our body's natural design to protect itself. And it's a really important function. But sometimes what can happen during times like this, where there's a lot of stress, it can be like a light switch gets turned on, and then the light switch gets stuck on the on position. And this is when our threat response is no longer helpful. And over time, what can happen if that light switch stays on, our nervous system is overactivated, then this can reduce our ability to take care of our bodies. Our immune system, our immune response system has a difficult time taking care of our bodies, and it can have an impact on our health. And so when we're able to find ways, use strategies to help us be in the present, then we can also calm and soothe our mind and our body. And we can also remind ourselves that in this moment right now, that we're safe right now. As you hear the sound of my voice, we're safe right now. And so mindfulness practices, many of you might already engage in some of those. Those are ways to help us get into the present moment and to calm and relax our body. And it can really help us feel grounded when things feel out of control. And there's actually a lot of science behind this. So let's talk about some more specific strategies that you can use to help yourself be in the present and calm down your nervous system. The first one I want to talk about is their mindfulness apps. So you can go on your phone, and then you can go to your app section, and you can find apps there on mindfulness. The top 3 apps are Calm, Insights Timer, and Headspace. And then Matt, you know about Stop, Breathe, and Think. I think that's one that you found. I haven't tried that one. Yeah. And so thanks for putting those in the chat box.
Okay.
So mindfulness apps, some of you might be familiar with them, some of you might not. So let me just talk a little bit about them. There's certainly subscriptions you can buy for them, a small fee every month, but there's a lot on there that's for free. And particularly right now, some of their subscriptions are free, but even that, beyond that, there's a ton that's for free on there. And there's a lot that's specific to COVID-19. And so when you go to a mindfulness app, whatever mindfulness app, you know, if you chose one, there are talks to help you manage stress. There are meditations to help you relax. There are the sounds of nature, could be music, stories, exercises that help you to get to sleep. Oftentimes it includes progressive relaxation, that kind of thing. Yeah, and feel free to add in the chat box if you have a different mindfulness app that you like, or if one of the apps that we've talked about is something that you like, so that your colleagues know that, that this is an app that they might want to check out. What can also be helpful to know is that you can choose the amount of time on there, right? So I looked, and if you're a busy person, I want you to know that there's, I think it's a breathing exercise for like 45 seconds. So if, I think every one of us on this webinar has 45 seconds. But then there's talks and other things that are like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. The sleep ones are longer, you know, because it takes a little bit more time usually to help get us to sleep. So there's a variety of times. So you could choose to, if this sounds like something that's a good fit for you, you could choose to download it, and then you could wake up in the morning and listen to one of the talks, if that's helpful for you. That's one strategy. Another one would be, you know, maybe you want to do it in the morning and then another time during the day. And you could listen to the same talk over and over if you find it really calming and relaxing. You could use it as needed as well. You know, so there's a lot of different ways that you could use these apps. And so something to consider, and it can be really helpful. I think particularly around sleep, what can be helpful about a mindfulness app is oftentimes what we struggle with is a busy mind. And when we have a busy mind that either makes it difficult to go to sleep or stay asleep, having an app all queued up, ready to go if you need it, and then clicking on it, then it's like another voice for your brain to listen to instead of your own, perhaps, thoughts that are circulating over and over. And so it gives your brain something else to pay attention to, which can be really helpful if you're feeling anxious or having racing thoughts, those types of things. Plus, it just teaches you also how to calm your body down. So it's just really good in that way.
Yeah.
Another strategy to think about, you don't need an app, you don't need anything. This all comes from within you. And that is coming back to our senses. And that can bring us back to the present moment. And in fact, we can do that right now. So wherever you're at, I just invite you to look around the room, or if you're outside, to look around you, wherever you're at, to look around you and to notice the light and the shadows, to notice any colors or textures you can see as you look around. And then notice if there's any sounds. Maybe there's sounds within the area that you're currently in, or sounds coming from outside that you can hear. Perhaps there's sounds of nature or family members, garbage trucks.
Mm-hmm.
And then notice your feet on the ground, whether you're standing or sitting. Notice your feet on the ground. And if you're sitting in a chair, your body sitting in the chair, and how you're being held right now. Being held by the chair, you're being held by the ground or the earth. And then some of you might have coffee or tea or water or something a snack next to you. And so I invite you to smell, what it smells like. And if you don't have something next to you, to just inhale and smell the room that you're in, the air around you. If you do have a treat or a beverage next to you, to take a little sip or a taste and notice the taste. So this is something that you can easily do. I know that some of you are in really stressful situations with people that are having a really hard time right now, or some of you might be really busy, or some of you, your workload might have gone in a different direction, or gotten quieter in some ways. Just know that when you're having a hard time, one of the things you can do is just come back to your senses. And that can bring you back to the present moment instead of your mind thinking about worries or those types of things. You could also consider, and many of you may do this, yoga. It's excellent for keeping you centered and grounded. In fact, if you have a yoga practice that you like that's free online, feel free to put that in the chat box. Feel free to add your ideas into the chat box, because there's a lot of free yoga that's out there right now. So much is being offered, which is so great. And you can also just put free yoga into a search engine, and up will come a ton of free yoga that you can take. The same with meditations. Yeah, same with meditations. You can find, if that's something that you like to do or want to try, you can find a lot of that online. Yeah, Adrienne is, she's probably the #1 yoga instructor out there, and she's been doing it for a long time. She's not new to the online version. And yeah, exactly, Kylie, she's got short versions that you can do, and they're very doable. Of course, follow your doctor's recommendations. Yeah, there's some really great videos that are out there. Wonderful. Thank you for continuing to add other thoughts and ideas up there. So then the last strategy that I want to talk about today is around another strategy that doesn't require an app or to pay any money or do anything like that. And that is coming back to our breath. So when we're stressed, we tend to come up into our upper chest with our breathing and breathe in a very shallow manner. And so by focusing on our breath, it's a way that we can get in tune with our breath and start to breathe from a deeper place. And so I want to introduce you, if you haven't done this before, to a breathing exercise called 4 square breathing. And so it includes breathing in for 4 counts, holding your breath for 4 counts, exhaling for 4 counts, and then holding your breath for 4 counts. And I'd like to invite you to try this, that we could do this all together. And before we do, I'd just love for you to check in with yourself. Just notice how you're feeling, and then in a moment, we'll look at the screen and we'll follow. Inhale and hold. Exhale and hold. Inhale and hold. Exhale. Hold. One more time. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Hold. Great. Feel free to let your breath return to its normal rate. And I would just invite you to check in with yourself and notice how you're feeling now. After doing that for just a few rounds, practicing this breathing technique, how you might be feeling. And if you'd like to, feel free to put in the chat box what you noticed from doing that simple breathing exercise. How you might feel right now. What
Mm.
we find is sometimes people feel a lot calmer after they do it. Yeah. And for some people, they might find like, oh, my breath kind of, I start to feel dizzy almost. So that's okay too. Um, you know, it's trying something new, and sometimes our body, isn't quite sure what to do with that. So, what you could do if you found yourself having a hard time with the breathing part is that you could just try it for one round,
Mm.
and then build up to trying for 2 rounds or 3 rounds. It's something that you can do on your own. We have that great graphic that we used. You could just do it in your mind's eye. You could imagine yourself drawing a square as you do it. You know, you breathe in for 4 and imagine drawing the top of the square and then the side and the bottom and up. You can just do that in your mind's eye. So it's really an easy way to practice. Yeah,
Mhm.
great. And so doing this can be really supportive to your mind and your body. And so it's just one idea around a breathing technique, and there's tons of others that are out there as
Mhm.
well, but a place to start. Matt, you're going to talk more about the body.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Carrie. Also, I think it's also what's interesting about the breathing exercise is that um, a person can also feel a sense of unease, right, Carrie, and
Yeah.
some tension too that could sometimes bubble to the surface as well. And so,
Mhm.
just another opportunity to sort of recognize how we carry stress, and certainly physically how we carry stress. So,
Yeah.
might be a good segue into this particular bit of information. So I'm going to talk a little bit about taking care of ourselves and more specifically, just a few ideas around our physical needs. And Chad, I really need your help with this one. So if you're within earshot and you can hear me, stay tuned because I do have a process question for you. So when we think about self-care during stressful periods, I think we have to also consider the impact or effect that it has on us physically. For example, sleep. Sleep is so important. And there's this sort of misnomer out there that if I um, work, the excess hours today, well, I'll just catch up on my sleep this weekend. And I think all of us know that that doesn't it doesn't sort of work out like that, right? We're not able to recoup lost sleep throughout the week. And so when we skip on sleep, it really does us a disservice because sleep is designed, as most of us know, to help us in many, many ways. But more specifically, it helps us manage those stress hormones that are within our system that can be accumulative over time. And so when we think about stress, we also need to think about and consider our mental health. And so with that, getting enough sleep, it's really a necessity. It's really not a luxury. Skipping on just a few hours can take a toll on our mood, our energy. It can impact mental sharpness, awareness, concentration, um, and our ability, as I said, just to handle stress altogether. And so over the long term, chronic sleep loss can really wreak havoc on our health and also our future outlook as well. And so some research supports that adults should aim for 7 to 9 hours, 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep each and every night. And so one of the ways that we might achieve that, I think, is to think about the ambient light that's generating even now off your monitors, off your laptops, off your smartphones, your television screens, your personal tablets, and give that front of that portion of your brain the opportunity just to calm down. And so the idea is that if you can just take a break from that stimulation up to an hour or two prior to bedtime, that you are going to be more likely to achieve a greater sense of deeper and more prolonged REM sleep. And so the chances are your sleep will not be as impacted or interrupted. And so it's important to try to start to condition the brain in a sense that it's time to go to bed. And of course, you've got the practical things that you can control as well, like room temperature and odor and smells, or how comfortable is the bed or couch or wherever you're finding yourself putting your head on at night. And so try to create that that ritual or routine of bedtime as much as possible in order to promote sleep. So in addition, somebody mentioned, I want to say in chat, active meditation or physical or movement meditation or something to that effect. And so when we think about managing our physical needs and the stress, we do definitely want to stay active. Movement is so important to our physical health. It's not that just that exercise helps us physically feel better or helps us feel more confident in ourselves when we're getting more physical exercise, but it really does combat and countermand the stress hormones in our system. So by staying active, we're really giving ourselves and the body an opportunity to get unstuck the stress hormones that can sometimes stay with us, especially after intense moments in our life, like things like traumatic events, work days, but then you add to that a particular incident maybe, or certainly pandemic, I think, may rise to that level of added stressors and pressures. So, staying physically active and moving and finding sleep, promoting sleep, can go a long way in managing our overall stress levels. And so some of the things that I might consider for myself are things like taking a walk with my fur babies. If you have pets, that fur babies are often affectionately referred to as pets, and maybe just going for a daily walk, right? And giving myself permission to, at least here on the west side, try to chase down those sunbeams as often as I possibly can, or try to find brilliant reasons or excuses to be able to go visit all of you on the east side. So I guess my process question for Chad is, when you think about like, what are the things that help you boost your mood and energy? What are some things that you can physically do to stay busy at a time when many of us are, being asked to socially distance, and which means physical, in some cases, distancing and isolation, right? So, what dancing to music? That's great. That's great. I have heard that there are these sort of things going around about like 3-minute dance videos or something like that. So that's kind of a nice, fun way of staying connected. Gardening, yes, singing out loud, and not just in the shower, right? But belting it out. Say for example, when we go for our walks, or we go for our Zumba, or we sing out loud, or we're gardening, all of the things that are coming in. Kickboxing, perfect. Playing music, perfect. I play acoustic guitar. It's a wonderful way of not just physically staying active, but mentally and emotionally staying active as well. It's the physical activity that releases endorphins, right? Which are those powerful chemicals that lift our mood and provide that extra energy that we need. Yes, wrestling with the kids, perfect. And it's through that exercise, it's through that movement that it really helps us relieve stress. And it certainly helps us manage our mood. It helps us improve our memory and focus and concentration. And you're probably going to get tired of me saying this, but it really does maintain and help us find and maintain sleep. So sleep is so important. Also, I would be remiss if we didn't talk about our dietary measures, our eating choices. I'm trying not to use diet as a 4-letter word, but maybe instead, incorporating wholesome meals, right? Like, we know that unhealthy eating patterns can take a toll on our brain. It can take a toll on our mood. It can take a toll on our energy. It can sap our energy and weaken our overall immune system and things like that at a time where we can't afford our immune system to be compromised. I can't even say this, but unhealthy eating patterns, my brain's getting ahead of my voice box here a little bit, can take a toll. And so, but now conversely, switching to, as I said, wholesome meals, right? So things that are low in sugar, things that are rich in healthy fats, things like fatty fish oils, the omega-3s, the salmon and the tuna, the mackerel, things like that. The nuts, such as walnuts, almonds, peanuts, if you're not allergic to those items. Avocados, right? These are all foods that boost mood and energy. And also leafy greens, I'm familiar with spinach and even Brussels sprouts. I just recently learned about and have started to get into eating different types of kale, which on the front end did not seem appealing to me, but it's actually not bad. It's actually pretty good. So, the next time you're at the grocery store and you're choosing what you want to bring into your home, you might consider taking a walk down and grabbing a few more items out of the vegetable and fruit aisle, because what we know, in fact, there was a study done at UC Berkeley where they took a group of students. I think this is interesting, that they found they're reported or presenting baseline levels of depression and anxiety. Half were told to not stop eating healthy foods. In other words, just keep eating what you normally eat. But here's the kicker. We want you to add more vegetables and more fruit to your existing meal plan, right? So keep eating what you're doing, or keep eating what you're eating, but just add or incorporate more wholesome foods. And after just 2 weeks, what they found was a significant improvement in their overall mental health. And so obviously that, studies like that need to be repeated, but it does show some promise in that they were able to measure improvement in incorporating healthy foods. And so when you think about the next time you go to the grocery aisle and you're reaching for ramen or canned soup or processed foods, it really is important to, when we think about managing our physical needs now more than ever, to try to incorporate more of those healthy food options. And of course, drinking water, right? Staying hydrated, so important. Water serves as a filler, it's a buffer, and certainly for many of us, with the convenience of a very short commute, but easy access to our refrigerator and all the wonderful things that we bring in from the outside, we have the option to, if we're experiencing stress, some of us might overeat or stress eat, or in some cases undereat, right? And so when you're reaching for that snack, think about drinking the water and first. And if you're still, if you still feel like you have a desire to eat something, plan it out if you can. Sometimes planning at the beginning of the week, that way you have your items ready to go. You don't have to put a whole lot of thought or energy into it. And chat, I would suspect many of you probably do that already, and that you have meal plans. Some folks that I've worked with have been on different types of eating plans or meal plans, things like keto. And so it kind of helps them pre-package and pre-plan their meals. And it overall reduces their stress as well. And then the last thing I want to say is it just helps avoid grazing throughout the day as well. So yes, so if you can drink water, please continue to do that. It doesn't just help us stay full, but it actually helps with our joints too. So very, very important. So those are just a few ideas, some simple things that we can do. Chat, what are some foods that you would recommend that you believe or that helps promote your mood and your energy in a healthy way? And maybe some different food items Yeah, okay, different types of beans for sure. And one of the benefits of chat is that all of us have, well, we all have our own experiences and our own education, and so yeah, caffeine-free items for sure. Um, and so the benefit of coming in and hearing Carrie and I provide some ideas is one thing, but all of you are experts too. And so this is an opportunity to be able to share some of those ideas. And some of you may not be comfortable or just don't have access to being able to lean into chat perhaps, but at least you can take some notes or grab some ideas out of chat too. So feel free to continue to share as much as possible. No processed sugar. Yeah, I think there's like a 1-to-1 ratio type of sugar replacement called monk fruit. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. It tastes just like sugar, and it's a good substitute. So yeah, keep the ideas coming. Perfect. Perfect. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit, Carrie, we're going to shift over back to you, but we're going to talk a little bit about things like what we have control over and what we don't have control over. Carrie?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Yeah, definitely. I think part of what's so difficult right now is that there's so much that we don't have control over, and that can make it really challenging. So a strategy that one can use is to identify what you do have control over. And so, a simple activity that you can do for yourself or with your kids or your teens is just take a piece of paper and identify all the things that you do have control over. And then you have that list for a time when you're having a hard time. You can pull that list back out and kind of remind yourself of the things that you are able to control. So when you're worried about safety, thinking about what those things are that you can do. Like I saw someone in the chat box, they're making masks. So to wear a mask, to wash your hands, to remind others to wash their hands, to take your vitamins. There's some things that we do have control over in the midst of all this chaos. And so, as Matt said earlier, it's expected that we would have worries and anxiety right now around our safety and around, other worries that we might have with the pressures that we're dealing with. But what could be really helpful is to not inflame the worries. And one way to do that is to limit news consumption, right? So some people are making a choice not to even look at the news right now. And then others are making other choices. With 24-hour news cycles now and social media access, we can easily become overloaded by bad news. So a choice that you could make is to decide how you want to watch the news, and to maybe not watch the news right before it's time to go to sleep. You might decide to leave your phone charger in another room so that you don't get tempted to look at social media. For some folks, what they're deciding to do is set a timer on their watch or an actual, hand timer for the amount of time that they're going to spend on social media or the news. For some folks, what they're doing is they are determining a frequency. I'll look at the news twice a day or whatever amount of time they determine. What other people are doing is they're deciding, these are my 1 or 2 sources of news that I feel comfortable with, that I believe are reliable, and then they're limiting, viewing the news and just going to those news sources. And that way they're not like grazing around and tempted to do that and looking in all different places. It helps them kind of narrow it down. So, it's really individual what works for you. If you do like one of these breathing exercise and then right afterwards you're on your phone right after that, it kind of you might have been relaxed for a moment and then you can get kicked right back into feeling stressed again. So just being aware of and managing how you consume news, something to think about. You could also, of course, things you have control over are going for, depending on your ability, your body's ability, but going for a walk or a stroll, taking your breaks, connecting with important people in your life. So there's different things that we do have control over, like maybe what you are going to have for lunch. There's some really specific things that we can control. All of us, though, have one type of control that we all have, and that is our internal locus of control. So even when everything outside of us is changing and we can't necessarily control the circumstances around us, we can control our own actions and how we show up in the world. And so a question we can ask ourselves in the morning is, who do I want to show up as I go into my work part of my life? And at the end of the day, who do I want to show up as when I'm going into my personal life? So we all have this internal locus of control that we can go back to, even when everything on the outside is changing around us. So sometimes we just need reminders, and our brains can kind of spin out in different directions. And so having some strategies over those pieces that you do have control over can be really helpful. I'm going to put in the chat box a link to one source of news. You can decide for yourself whether you like it or not. That's called The Greater Good. It's from UC Berkeley, and they have like positive news that comes out from there. Some of you might also be familiar with, I think his name's Jim Krasinski. It's more kind of pop culture type of thing, but he has on videos, he has some good news. So he's always looking for the positive news out there, and it can be kind of funny and humorous. And he's done some great things, like had a prom for seniors who are not able to actually go to their prom, and has done some pretty amazing things on there. So that's kind of fun too. So there's some things that we do have control over, and it's just trying to be mindful of those. It can be challenging, so sometimes we need some reminders of that. Matt, you are going to talk more about creating a sense of safety.
I am, and I would invite, thank you, Carrie. Thank you.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I would invite, Chad, I would invite all of you just to kind of take a collective pause with me here for just a moment, and let's just appreciate this photo. And when you look at this photo, I guess my question is, like, what does that evoke from you? The baby is yawning, I suspect, and but the thing that really stands out, I think, is there's just such a degree of comfort emanating from this photo. And I agree, chat. I think I want to yawn as well. And then you add to that photo four-square breathing, and there you go. It's time for bed. So, but this photo, it really also reminds me of just safety, security, and stability. And so when it comes to feeling safe, right? I mean, this is going to be clearly different for everyone in how we go about doing that. And so it's important to not compare yourself to others. But it is okay to consider ways that when we talk about what's within our control and what's not within our control, to start thinking about how can we influence these types of environments or situations where we do or can promote that sense of safety and calmness, and things like that. So it helps prevent, like sickness and excessive worry and depression, isolation as a result of depression. I mentioned under eating and sleep disturbances. So, when I think about what helps promote a sense of safety, I mean, I have some ideas, and there's some ideas up on the screen here. But Chad, I'd like to ask you, what helps you remain calm or safe in the face of life's challenges, life's difficulties, the adversity that we all face. What helps you remain calm or safe? And there's no right or wrong answer. Again, it's not about comparing what I do versus what you do, but it is an opportunity for us as a collective whole here, as a community, to be able to contribute some ideas of the things that you may do that help promote calmness or safety. So for instance, what I have on the screen are things like, does listening to an uplifting song make you feel calm? Or perhaps, thank you, chat, you're coming in loud and clear, thank you. Or perhaps smelling your favorite scent. Maybe it's a candle, maybe it's incense, maybe it's freshly baked cookies or a pie, lasagna. Or maybe it's just squeezing a stress ball to help you feel centered and grounded. Maybe it's holding on to something that brings you comfort, like beads or prayer beads, or perhaps a particular cloth. You know, the point is that we all have creative ways well, we all experience stress. It's pretty universal, but we also all have creative ways of being able to manage that stress. And we often do that through our sensory input. And so when we start experimenting and we discover, say, what our nervous system responds to by way of sensory input, like music or smelling fresh hot bread, things like that, you know, it helps us quickly calm ourselves, no matter where or when stress hits. In fact, I suspect that for many of you, when you're out in, pre-COVID, when we're out and we're at the malls and we're shopping and we're walking in and out of restaurants, or just the occasional stroll, you might catch a particular scent or smell that just kind of takes you back to a special place or memory. And so I would encourage you, I would challenge you to think about and also borrow from the list that you, Chad, are putting together, because all of us have our normal coping styles or skills to manage stress. And as I said at the very beginning of this presentation, we may perhaps be feeling a little bit more wafer thin. And so it's important to incorporate additional ideas, things that really speak to you, things that you can connect with. And so another concept or idea is to consider this, that there are many of the world's top viral scientists that we know are diligently working in a focused manner on COVID. We know that they've spent much of their adult lives focusing and to become subject matter experts in this area. And so what that does for me, I guess, Chad, is it allows me to focus on practicing and influencing those things that I do have influence or control over, to promote my own safety measures, right? And those things that are within as Carrie mentioned, as you mentioned, Carrie, those things that are within our internal locus of control. And so whatever that thing is for you, we have a few more ideas in chat. And so hopefully you'll be able to save chat or copy some of these ideas down. And if you think of something else that comes up a little bit later in the webinar, feel free to add it. You know, we're definitely not on this sort of linear plane. So feel free to, if you think of something later on, feel free to add it to chat so that we can all benefit from those ideas. So again, it's just time to pause, maybe pull out a photo of a family member or someone that you care about, someone that perhaps you once knew, or maybe it's somebody in history and somebody that you can really sort of feel grounded with and help promote that sense of safety and security for yourself. There is one other way of promoting a sense of comfort and safety and security. And I think it's about getting outdoors. And Carrie, you're going to talk to us a little bit about what that means and what that looks like, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're so lucky in Washington to have such a beautiful state. You know, we have deserts and oceans and the ocean and rivers and rainforests and so much diversity throughout our state. So beautiful, no matter where you are in the state. You might have noticed that some of the pictures in this presentation, pictures of nature, and they are all pictures from Washington. And I know that, yeah, this is, you know, going out in nature is really calming to me and really helps me put worries in perspective and can be very refreshing. And perhaps that's true for others of you out there as well. You know, and I feel so grateful that we can still, in this state, we can still go outside. And the governor will be opening up the parks, some of the parks, May 5th, I believe it is. And so we might be able to, you know, enjoy with physical distancing more nature in the near future. And so going outside is really beneficial. And if you're not able to get outside, enjoying a picture like the one that's up on the screen right now, research shows that that can also be beneficial. So if you're not able to get outside, there's another option, and that's to, you know, have pictures around that you can look at, because it's helpful for your mood, your mental health. It's also helpful for your body, for getting vitamin D, which is important for your body. And so consider if there's times where you could get outside maybe a little bit more. Say you're doing FaceTime with family members or friends, maybe you just stand outside while you're doing that, and have some time to really appreciate nature, and it can be very grounding and calming to be out in nature. So being out in nature can help you both physically and mentally, so something to consider. The next thing I want to talk about is a concept of what's contagious. So we could see at the beginning of COVID-19 that fear was contagious, right? We could see people, you know, going to the store and buying extra supplies, and we could see how that kind of started rippling from one person to the next. And just as fear can be contagious, so can kindness. And the reason is that these could both be contagious is because we're socially focused as humans. It's important for our survival. So if there's a snake and one person jumps, it's important that we all jump when someone jumps, because that means that, oh, there might be a threat. And so it's a basic part of our survival. And so we respond to social cues of other humans. And you can also see this with babies. They mimic and synchronize facial expressions, vocalizations, postures, and movements in reaction to caregivers. So we all do this. We all respond to social cues. And so in this really challenging time that we're all in together, it's an opportunity also, an opportunity to spread kindness and to be a role model to others, to other adults, children, teens, especially I think of children and teens, whether it's community members or within your home. We can, really role model kindness and show up for each other, and demonstrate that, and by making the masks, that was brought up earlier, things like that. So feel free to add in the chat box ways that you are showing kindness or that you're seeing other people show kindness. Feel free to add those in the chat box. And I will kind of talk about a few ideas too while you're thinking about those and adding those to the chat box. So some of you might be aware of the app called Nextdoor, and it's neighbors coming together over an app. And I definitely have seen a lot of kindness on there in my neighborhood, and I'm sure it's in other neighborhoods too, where people are saying, hey, I can go to the store for you if you're not able to go to the store. I can help you with this, with that. I have extra supplies of, toilet paper or whatever it might be. And they're also, I guess, I haven't seen these yet, but Facebook crisis response groups that you could be a part of. And feel free to add other ideas in the chat box. Great. Picking flowers, making masks. Wonderful. So great to see other ideas. Some people have talked about putting teddy bears in their windows so kids have something to find on their walks, something of interest and different. Some people are painting rocks and putting those in neighborhoods so people have, they can look for rocks as they're going out for a walk. Some people are using sidewalk chalk to make positive messages or pictures. In my personal life, I sent out Girl Scout cookies to an elder that I can't visit right now. And they really appreciated it as it gave them some good memories. And the Girl Scouts can also send cookies to first responders, and they'll figure that part out. So there's a lot of creative things that we can do. Yeah, I love your ideas in the chat box, and keep adding other ideas that come to mind. Yes, lots of charities are needing donations right now, definitely. So many good ideas. So there's so many things that we can, do for people. I also want to put out there this quote from Parker Palmer as well. It's on your screen there. Here's the deal. The human soul doesn't want to be advised or fixed or saved. It simply wants to be witnessed, to be seen, heard, and companioned exactly as it is. So I really want to encourage all the acts of kindness that everyone is doing. Those are great. Let's do more. And I think Parker Palmer is a good reminder about sometimes the act that we do is to simply listen, to show up and just be there for someone, to not try to fix it, make it different, to be able to say, yes, this is hard, and to understand that person's experience is very powerful. To show up, to be a witness to someone's life, to be present, to validate their feelings. That's another way that we can spread kindness. So many great ways that we can use this as an opportunity to spread kindness at this time, and very difficult time that we're all in. And Matt, you've got some ideas too. I mean, it's just very similar. Yeah.
So gratitude. And, I know this is going to sound like a setup, but I really, truly am grateful that that Chad is really leaning in here, and really, I just see so much support for each other, and some wisdom and insight being shared. So thank you, Chad, for doing that.
Yeah.
Gratitude. It's the research shows that gratitude, right, in our own experience, that that it helps us cope in periods of crises, and it certainly can help us maintain our own physical and mental health and personal well-being. And so therefore, processing a life experience through, let's say, a grateful lens, right? It does not mean denying life's challenges, negativity, or the adversity that we face, or it doesn't mean that we're practicing by utilizing a grateful lens, that it doesn't mean that we are practicing some sort of radical form of superficial happyology. No, instead, it means realizing the power that you have to transform what can be perceived as an obstacle into a real opportunity. It's an opportunity to gain insight, to gain experience. And again, I'm not at all minimizing the impact that trauma has had in our lives, but simply it's the idea to reframe that loss or tragedy or difficult life circumstance into a potential gain, and recasting those challenges perhaps in a positive channel of gratitude. So there is a growing body of research out there right now that is specifically examining how what's called grateful recasting works. Some of you may be familiar with that language or terminology. And in fact, just up north of Pullman there, up at Eastern Washington University, participants were randomly assigned to one of 3 writing groups that would recall and report on an unpleasant open memory. Open memory being defined as anything that has yet to be fully resolved and put down or effectively worked through. Could be things like a loss, could be divorce, loss of a job, a betrayal perhaps, or having been victimized, certainly, and other personal, very personal upsetting experiences. And so what the first group was asked to do was write for 20 minutes. So they were just simply wrote for 20 minutes on issues that were irrelevant to their open memory. So they wrote about everything else but the open memory. The second group wrote about their experience pertaining only to the open memory. So there was absolutely no deviation. They just strictly wrote to the open memory. But the researchers had asked the third group to focus on the positive aspects of the difficult situation or experience, and to try to discover what about that experience perhaps made them, or they could feel some sense of gratefulness, or to feel more grateful. Results showed that they demonstrated, as a result of practicing or putting on the grateful lens, that they actually had more closure and less unpleasant, negative emotional impacts than participants who just simply wrote about the experience altogether without being prompted to see ways that it could be redeemed through the lens of gratitude. So I think that study shows that just the act of thinking gratefully can help us heal troubling memories at times, and in a sense, redeem them, right? And again, these types of results are echoed again and again in various other studies. And so I just wanted to point that out, that just by donning the grateful lens and doing the recasting can really make a difference in helping us heal. I would also like to invite you to consider what you're grateful for, especially during this stressful and unusual time. Some of you have mentioned what you're grateful for already, but I would ask all of you, chat, to think about maybe someone in your life today, somebody in your past maybe, or perhaps somebody in history. So not all of us are fortunate or lucky enough to have that certain someone, sadly, that we can immediately at least recall. And so I would encourage you to think about someone that you are particularly grateful for. And then here's what I'd like you to do. There is something about putting pen to paper and writing it down. And I would challenge you, Chad, I would encourage you to think about taking a few minutes and just writing down what you're grateful for as you sort of reflect on that particular individual. And obviously we don't have time machines, so we can't go back in time. However, if you do have the option to share what you've captured with that individual, I would ask that you do that. And again, if you can't go back, and obviously we can't go back in time, but maybe there's someone close to you that you do have a trusted relationship with, and I would ask that you share your words with them. And we know that through in being altruistic and helping and doing others, it promotes and builds on our resilience factors, as is the art and practice of gratitude, or in some cases, the attitude of gratitude, right? So that's, I just kind of wanted to touch a little bit on the topic of gratitude and the importance of it. And we can continue to talk about this topic for quite some time. And so I'm just going to leave you with that little challenge of writing it out and possibly sharing it with somebody close to you.
Great, thanks, Matt. So next we're going to talk about staying connected. We are physically distancing right now, and this is not the time for social distancing, because we as humans really need social connection. And before COVID-19, loneliness and isolation, was a big phenomenon in our society. and many people called it an epidemic. That's before we started physically distancing. And there's the term now out there, social distancing, which is not necessarily helping this. So a lot of people are really feeling isolated and lonely right now. And yeah, it was already an issue. And so now there's, expected that would go up. And so there's research showing that there can be long-term harm when people are feeling lonely and isolated, not just mentally, but physically as well. And researchers have found a connection between social isolation and loneliness and how it takes a toll on our bodies. It could be, the research is showing that it could be catching a cold, experiencing depression, developing heart disease, and living a shorter life. And in fact, the long-term consequences of loneliness are similar to the effects of smoking. And so I want all of you to know that if you're feeling lonely right now, you're feeling isolated, that you're not alone. There are a lot of people that are feeling that way right now. And I just encourage you to reach out to someone, whether that's us at EAP or a friend or family member or coworker, and to find ways to connect. And if you know someone who's feeling lonely or isolated, to just connect with them and just to say hello, to check and see how they're doing. Those little things can really help. If you have the opportunity to connect with someone over video, that's preferred, because then we can see facial cues and body language and other nonverbal forms of communication, which are really important for bonding. If you're not able to do it over video, texting or phoning are still good. It's better than nothing. So, to consider ways that you can connect with people. And I think people are finding all sorts of incredible ways to be connected right now. And feel free to add in the chat box ways that you're connecting with people in your life. I've been having coffee dates with friends, which have been really fun. And we're staying connected that way. There's virtual dance parties, virtual happy hours. You can get together in book clubs virtually. There's so many different ways. So if you have other ways that you have been connecting with people in your life, feel free to add that into the chat box, because sometimes you might have an idea that someone else hasn't thought of before. And so that can be really helpful. You can also connect to groups. The 12-step groups are still happening, and they're happening over the web. If you're struggling with a medical condition, there's most likely a support group for you. It might have been that before COVID-19, you didn't feel the need for a support group for some of these areas. And now with all the stressors and isolation, it might just be time to consider doing that. There's a lot through, informally, through Facebook, parenting groups. There's also people getting together to do crochet or knitting. And I just went to a birthday party of a dear friend of mine, and she had a disco party last night. People brought their snacks and their dinners and chatted and then danced, and it was really an incredible and touching experience to be able to do that. And I see that you're adding lots of different ideas into the chat box, so this is really great. Playing board games, yeah, I've been hearing about people doing that. I haven't tried that yet. I'm looking forward to trying that at some point. And so many different ways that you can connect and find ways that work for you. I see prayer circles there. Yeah, so lots of different ways that you can connect with people during this, very challenging time. Consider also maybe connecting with some people that you haven't thought of connecting with. Maybe it's a neighbor, someone that you used to report to. I reached out to a supervisor from many, many years ago, and that was quite fun. So there might be, someone from, college if you went to college, or who, different people from throughout your life that you might think about connecting with, and it's kind of a great opportunity to do that. Or it might be deepening your relationships with people that were already in your life, and that you're finding yourself having deeper conversations and connecting in this new and different way. So I think the main thing here is connection is so important. It's important for your mental well-being and your physical well-being, and to reach out. And I know that sometimes that can be hard, and sometimes our brains might tell us, oh, I don't want to do that. Sometimes with our mental health, we need to think about taking an opposite action. So we don't want to reach out, but for our mental health and our overall well-being, it's actually really helpful to reach out. So sometimes we have to say, okay, that's not what I want to do, is reach out. And reaching out for me is something that can be really beneficial. So Matt, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk more about, it's really kind of summarizing everything that we've been talking about, which is resiliency.
It is really, I mean, when we think about resilience, it's really the idea, by definition, the ability to bounce back from life's difficult challenges, isn't it? And so we focused throughout this webinar on some important core components, things like connection, as you just mentioned, our wellness, in other words, our physical health, our mental health, healthy thinking, and certainly finding meaning. Can empower you to withstand and learn from difficult and traumatic experiences. And so just to increase our capacity for resilience, to continue to grow from and develop insight as a result of experiencing these challenges, there are some key strategies that we can certainly look at and review. So resilience is such a big, broad, it's such a broad topic. And so again, let's just look at a few of those core components for the sake of time here. We want to certainly prioritize relationships. We want to connect with empathetic and understanding people who do or can remind all of you that you're not alone in the midst of these challenges and difficulties. And I think that's worth repeating, that you are not alone. And focus on finding trustworthy and surrounding yourself with compassionate individuals who do validate your feelings, to help promote connection. And the fear or pain of stress and traumatic events, and certainly the stressors and pressures of COVID and all that it comes along with it, can lead some of us to want to isolate ourselves, or feeling overwhelmed due to excess blame or fear. But it's important to accept help, and it can be not just helpful for the person receiving it, but also, as I mentioned before, through acts of altruism, that it can be helpful for them too. And so, please accept help and support from others who care about you, if you can, please. Also consider joining a group. Another way of staying connected. There are definitely a lot more options today that I've noticed, or at least that are kind of coming into my view, and online anyhow. And so, like online support groups through Facebook can help bridge connections. And the point is to not isolate altogether, but to seek connection, even if it is through electronic means. And also just take care of your body. I mentioned physical health earlier. Self-care, self-care and mindfulness, they may sound like popular buzzwords, but they do have legitimate practice for maintaining and supporting our mental health, and certainly building upon our resilient attributes. And so, and really that's because stress is, well, it's just as much physical, isn't it, as it is emotional. And so we want to promote those positive lifestyle factors, those things like proper nutrition and ample sleep, hydration, and staying active, or as active as we can be, through regular exercise, and staying active and keeping that movement going to help us sort of reduce the toll of the emotions that things like anxiety or depression, to be able to better manage the symptoms associated with those things. as well as helping to kind of slow down and channel some of the negative rumination that we can sometimes find ourselves engaged in. And that brings me to practicing mindfulness, right? We talked a little bit about mindfulness apps earlier. Some folks in chat mentioned yoga, mindful journaling, and other spiritual practices like prayer or meditation can also help build connections and restore hope. And all of these help us really deal with situations that require our resilient attributes. And so when you journal, meditate, or pray, whenever possible, I would say if you're going to ruminate, don't ruminate on the negative, try to ruminate on the positive, and start looking through your own grateful lens and the things that you are grateful for, even during life's difficulties. And again, also, I think I just want to add to, let's try to keep things in perspective while avoiding the catastrophic or worst case type thoughts. For instance, if you're feeling overwhelmed by a challenge, remind yourself that what happened to you is not an indicator of how your future will go, and that you're not helpless, right? So even though some of us may feel helpless or in some cases powerless, we're not. That we have choices. We still have ways to promote our safety, our ways to engage in self-care, ways to stay or remain connected. And so no one's helpless, right? And that even though you may not be able to change certain aspects or circumstances, things that's happening in the news that you're hearing about, which may or may not even be accurate information, we just don't know. But what you can do is change how you interpret and respond to that information. So moving from this place of emotional reactivity, which is kind of like, imagine a sort of emotional vortex, right? And then hitting that pause button and giving yourself permission. As Carrie mentioned earlier, how do I want to show up for work? So you're moving from this place of feeling reactionary to responding. How do I want to be? How do I want to face this particular challenge today? And I think in doing that, you are giving yourself permission to also maintain a sense of hope for the future and engaging in a hopeful outlook. It can be hard to be positive at times when there's so much scary news being reported. And some of you in chat may know someone that's been personally impacted or affected. I mean, we've all been impacted to some degree, but you may personally know someone that's been ill. And so with that, we don't want to discount or minimize your experience or feelings at all. What I would encourage you to try to do is to visualize what you do have influence or control over, and what you want, rather than worrying about what you fear. Along the way, you might notice some subtle changes or ways in which you start to feel better, and as you deal with life's difficult situations. And so this type of an attitude or mindset, it's not just a popular buzzword. It really is and does have a positive influence on others as well. And so continue to practice being resilient.
Definitely. Great. Thanks, Matt. So I wanted to just give a little humor before we close. And we have a few things we want to let you know about so you know how to connect with us. But this is just a reminder that not everything's canceled, that we could still dance and sing and laugh, have hope. So yeah. And Matt, you're going to talk more about starting to think about connecting with us.
Yeah, so again, if you're experiencing excessive worry, or you're finding that it's difficult to find sleep or stop, maybe you're noticing you're feeling particularly anxious or even down, or you're just feeling like you're isolating, not to avoid sickness or illness, but to sort of isolate and kind of cut off, we would encourage you to consider, well, one of two things really. One is we would encourage you to please consult with your medical team, your doctors, your ARNPs, and if you have mental health counselors or coaches, this is the time to reach out to them. Again, you're not alone. And I like the comment earlier in chat that this is a WSU family and that you're all connected. in support of each other. And so, utilize your resources in this community even. And but the point is, seek help when you need it. And of course, you can always reach out to us. We're your Washington State Employee Assistance Program. Carrie and I are both counselors here for the EAP. And we have counselors throughout Washington State that are on standby, ready to help and support you for a variety of issues. And Carrie is going to share with you how you can get in touch with us. Thanks, Carrie.
Oh, great, thanks. Yeah, we want you to know that we're here for you. We're here for you and the family members that are living in your household. And so you can contact us by calling 877-313-4455. And for those over 18, they can call us directly. For those that are younger than 18, we would have the caregiver call us, and we'd help you. We talk directly to the caregivers about creating a parenting plan, and or getting connected to the appropriate resources for the age of the child or the teen. So we can help for the under 18 in your household as well. When you call that number, you would talk to an intake specialist, and they would gather a little bit of information and then get you connected to the right person. We are currently, to keep everyone safe, we're doing counseling over the phone and over the internet. And so we have counselors, though, throughout the state. So wherever you're at in the state, I just want you to know that we have local providers as well, and that provide expert and practical help. And it's a benefit to you. It's free. This is a confidential service. So you can meet with us from 1 to 3 sessions per issue. So if you have a concern about your teen, that would be 1 to 3 issues. We would talk about that issue that you're having and help you with that. And then say you had another issue, a work concern, then that would be 1 to 3 sessions for that issue. So it's not per calendar year, it's per issue, your 1 to 3 sessions. We can help you with issues related to work and to home. And everything from something that you might think of as simple and easy to something that's a crisis and that you're really having a challenge with. So there's so many areas that we can help you with. This PowerPoint presentation, I believe, Dawn, maybe you can put it in the chat box. I believe that it's going to be posted as well as the recording will be posted. Matt, if you could go to the next slide. I want you to know that that we have resources that we've listed in the back of the presentation, but also there's resources that are specific to your college that are listed there as well. I also want to let you know we're part of Employee Assistance Program, and we have a lot of other webinars that you can also take. We have people across the state that are taking those. And so you can visit our website directly at eap.wa.gov, and you can see, you'll see COVID-19 resources. You can click on that, and then you can register for other webinars that we have. Say I'm working from home, parenting and family challenges, leading employees through these difficult times. We have a new one on how to build resilience when your job involves helping others in crisis. We have lots of other information on that same resource page that you can access. And we continually update. So, and we'll be creating more of the same, or we'll be having more of the same webinars in the future that we'll be adding to the website. Plus, we'll have new ones that we'll be adding to the website as well. And so we just encourage you to feel free to visit our website and connect with us that way through a webinar, or through, we have a newsletter you could sign up for, or by contacting the number that we talked about earlier. You can connect with us to get connected with a counselor. There's so much more that we could talk about, isn't there, Matt? But we are out of time.
It goes by so fast. It really does.
It's really been an honor to be here, and I'm so grateful that all of you came and joined us today. And I hope that there's been a few strategies that have been helpful for you. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Matt, to end our time.
Well, I just want to echo what you're saying and your sentiments there, Carrie. I am so grateful that everybody decided, it's one thing for us to schedule a presentation or a webinar like this, but it's another thing for all of you to find time out of your busy schedules to attend. And so we're humbled and we're very privileged to have this opportunity to provide some information. And Chat, as they say, you're the VIPs. You really came in and provided a lot of support for each other. And that's really what this is about. It's about being there together in connection. And so with that, I just want to extend my gratitude and appreciation for all of you. And for Dawn and others at WSU, the leadership there that's invited us to be here with you this afternoon. Thank you, thank you. And what Carrie and I would like to do is go ahead and hit the mute button. We're going to silence ourselves for maybe a minute or two and allow all of you to feel free to type in anything you'd like to type into chat as a parting goodbye, or whatever you feel you'd like to type in there. And we hope that we will see all of you in a future EAP webinar to help continue to support you and your family and members and the community at large. So thank you for being here. And with that, we wish you a solid, good week and weekend. Thank you.
Take care, everyone.